All right, I am sitting here with Aaron Graven, who is a senior virtual construction engineer at Lake Erie Electric, where he's been there for over 8 years. Uh, Aaron was a licensed journeyman electrician in Ohio and Michigan, and he spent nearly a decade in the field before moving into virtual construction. He is now leading the efforts at Lake Erie Electric to make BIM models truly constructible and useful for the shop, and not just for show. So today we'll discuss the real challenges with BIM, workforce shortages, and what needs to change in the industry. So let's get to it. Aaron,
Yeah.
welcome.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, I am very excited to have you. I know I've seen you around advancing prefab in a couple of the shows, and so happy to have you sit down and talk on this topic.
Yeah. No, we fly around the circuit pretty good. So, yeah, we just trying to make a name for ourselves and keep doing great things. So,
Absolutely. And I think I saw you're speaking at Advancing Prefab this year, 2025.
yeah, we'll be there again. We spoke the last few years. Amy Marks has really gotten us on the on board with this, and I tell you what, we were one of the early adopters, and if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So, I just, I want to give major props to Amy Marks and my partner, who I'm here with, my partner in crime, Brian Dilly. So if it wasn't for him going to the first advancing prefab and coming back and going, oh man, we're never going to catch up, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So it I feel like we've caught up, and now we're trying to start lead the industry and make the best of the electrical industry. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, the progress you've made that we've talked about is truly impressive. So very excited to have you talking about that and shedding lights. And so want to start off with just like let's look at the landscape of BIM for the electrical industry and like how would you describe the current landscape?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. I think we're lacking. We are. I'd say if you look at some of the other industries, you got the pipe fitters and the tin knockers and sheet metal and stuff. We're probably 15, 20 years behind them, but we're catching up quick. So, the BIM's here to stay, and it's not going away. And these owners are demanding it, and the timeline of these projects is getting shorter and shorter. And you know, it's amazing what the industry's done and where we're at. And if you would have told me 5 years ago this is what I'd be doing, I'd be like, no way, man. No way.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing to see like even just thinking about the past 5 years, what has changed in the electrical market and how you guys construct and build things. It's amazing to see the evolution.
yeah, no, we've really tried to take our engineering and our BIM process to a constructible level. For the past so many years, everybody in the electrical industry has been just kind of doing BIM or doing 3D modeling to check off a box to say, hey, we did that. You know what I mean? They represented our conduit with just a box out or cable tray. And now that we're actually starting to model in all of our elements, and we're starting to get that, feedback like, hey, oh, you got a lot more there than we originally thought, we'll give you that space, or we'll help you out, where for so long it was just a pretty picture, and then it'd get out to the field and the guys would reject it and say, we can't build that like that, it's not constructible. So now that we're actually starting to make a
Mhm.
constructible model and give them good parts and pieces to build off of and good information, our progress here at Lake Erie is just soared. So
That's amazing. And I know a lot of electrical contractors, that's what they aspire to be. Like I'm sure at Advancing Prefab, you saw, some influence out there talking about it. And it's like it's hard to achieve. So like like what was that journey like at Lake Erie? Where, that transformation of it just being like checking a box to becoming a true efficiency tool.
oh yeah. So, to be honest with you, I was one of those electricians in the field who was trying to put together stuff that I was getting from the office, and it wasn't constructible. So it it was frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, it was very frustrating when I would get, parts and pieces or people want me to do prefab and here I'm like, this isn't constructible. And so one thing that my boss did was he brought myself and Brian Dilly and into the office and said, let's work with our VDC and make constructible models. And then once we started doing that, we started getting buy-in from the field, we started getting buy-in from the fab shop, and it just started to soar. So it's been great things, but I guess one thing that I gotta say, if you're starting out with BIM and you're in electrical, you gotta take somebody from the field who's built it and constructed it. That way, we can put the actual constructability and buildability to our modeling process.
Yeah, because I can imagine that being a detractor to, if you're like, let's say the head of the company is wanting to move to BIM, but if you've got a bunch of people that are designing that, they haven't they don't understand the field, and or at least having that guidance, or like whether it's like a senior person or a manager that can help inform, like, hey, this is why we do it this
Well,
way.
let's just be honest here. The owner is not the person who wants to start doing BIM.
Yeah.
Let's just be let's the owner of my company is forced to do it because the owners of these projects are starting to require it because the timelines of these projects are getting condensed down and they're trying to look for ways to speed up their project, improve safety and bring it in on time and under budget. So, you know, the owners of the electrical companies weren't the ones driving it necessarily, and they're seeing the success that the other trades are having with BIM, and now they're like, okay, everybody needs to start getting on board. So it's definitely a good thing, and I think that it's just going to keep blowing up. So
Yeah, absolutely. BIM is here to stay. It's not going away.
no, no, it's not going away.
So that's really interesting. And so at Lake Erie, having somebody that had the field experience that knew, okay, this is what the end, like had the end in mind. This is what it's supposed to look like. And so that helped with that change management to make it effective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we took it from just getting a pretty picture and checking that box off to now getting that fully constructible model. And
Yeah.
this kind of leads me into some of the other hardships that we've got. We're looking for people right now to actively model, and we're really struggling to find these people. We've been all around. We've us Lake Erie and Toledo, we're very fortunate. We've got major colleges right in our backyard. We're 15 minutes from BGSU. We're 20 minutes from the University of Toledo. We could take a rock and hit Owens Community College, and then we're right in the middle of the Ohio State and Michigan Wolverines. Like we're literally within 2 hour drive of each of those. So, we're right in the center. We do a lot of institutional work. And so we've reached out to some of these engineers and professors and trying to get into their engineering programs. And what we're finding out is that Revit's really just being taught in an architectural level. They show them how to put in some walls and some doors and some windows and how to navigate the ribbon. It's all that's important, but they never deep dive into the systems. And that's what we're looking for, somebody that knows the systems. And that's where the disconnect really starts coming in. So I can get these kids and these young kids, they thrive on this technology. This is what they've lived on growing up playing Roblox and video games and doing all this cool stuff, and now they got 3D printers. And so they take to this technology very, very quickly,
Yeah.
but then brings you to the other problem. They don't know how to build electrical construction or even plumbing or mechanical. So all these BDC engineers that you see for all these MEP trades, I'm going to say most of them are 60% trained, if not more, on the job training from somebody who has built it before.
Mhm.
So, and we've done a lot. We've done a lot to try to boost this in our area and get it going. And we've reached out to, these colleges and tried to get them to get on board, and they're a little weary. They don't really know what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
then, we've been to some of the high schools in the area and talked to them, and they're like, huh, we can't really take the time to teach that. So we've went down to our local vocational school. And
Yeah.
this is where they're teaching construction, doing stuff. And so we thought, let's just take this one step at a time. Let's get them introduced into some digital construction flow. And they're out there reading with regular blueprints that are printed off, and just getting them into that digital construction flow and teaching them how to use Bluebeam and markup drawings, and slowly getting them into that Revit process is how we're working to try to help the community and our youth create that necessity and need to see where the industry's going.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. I mean, there's for a virtual construction job, not just electrical contractor job, but specifically in virtual construction, you would think that that's something the schools would want to teach. Like that's the future. So
Yeah,
we need to teach it, and it's not going away, and it's been here
no.
for years and years.
No, I mean, if you go on, to these owners and these owners reps, I mean, they're demanding it. They want, a buildable model. They want to know, you know, what you're doing and a plan ahead of time. That way they know that their project's going to be brought in on time and on budget. So yeah, it's not going away. And if anything, it's going to get more and more. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest questions that I get from these high schools and these other people is, well, do you think AI is going to take it over? And I'm like, do you think this is something that AI could produce here in the years to come? And I'm like, yes and no to a point. Like, I think AI is amazing. I use it every day. I love AI. You know what I mean? I use ChatGPT. I use, all kinds of stuff. I use Evolve. They've got the auto routing functions and stuff like that. So, we use these automated processes all the time. And while I do think it's going to take over some, I think that you're definitely going to have to constantly review for constructability, and deciding what's feasible and what's not. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's the industry's crazy right now, and
Yeah.
the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean what we're seeing in how AI is being adopted, even in industries that are being disrupted, is it's making the individual more productive. It's
Yeah,
not as much replacing the individual, but it's reallocating the individual on more critical thinking tasks. Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
That knowledge. I mean, there's so much knowledge out there, and so many, things that other people have already done. I mean, if I want a back end macro or a code to something to speed me up to reduce clicks, I mean, it's right there on the internet, and I
yeah,
can grab it and go. So it's. I think it's going to be a next fun 10 years. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's where like even our stance at Evolve, we're focused on, and you know this, obviously just making the individual more productive. Like
yeah,
that is one of the areas we want to make your life easier and more productive. And I think, AI is amazing what it can do, but there's at the end of the day, you're talking about a building. I mean, if it's wrong, who are you gonna you can't really hold the AI accountable.
yeah, no, and and that's another, that's a whole nother issue that I don't know if we even want to go
Yeah.
into, but that's the biggest problem that we have right now is going into some of these remodels and buildings. We have a lot of colleges over here. They're constantly changing, they're constantly adapting their programs. So we're going in doing remodels and stuff, and the architect is doing their best job with 50 to 100-year-old drawings trying to replicate what was there. But after over the years it's all changed so much, and these owners, and especially these colleges, are expecting a replicatable model and an exact you know collaboration of what's there. And when the beams are not in the right spot and walls have changed and they've added block or put on 50 additions, a lot of stuff gets lost in the shuffle. So that's one of the big heartaches we're feeling right now, is trying to give that conducive constructible model with a building that's really old. So
Yeah, I can imagine that being really hard, and it's like it's gonna be easier down the road because we've got these models that we can refer back to. But when you have to build it from scratch, and you're like, I don't really know what's behind that.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Well, the problem, the real problem is, yes, these owners are getting a pretty good replicatable model, but now we're trying to use BIM to actually construct and build that ahead of time off site to try to save time, money, and increase, our safety.
ah,
And so when we start producing it in our shop and then it gets to the job and there's something different, it really it puts a wrench in our chain. So,
it
it
does.
really
I mean, the
needs some
amount of
change
time
there.
wasted and resources.
Right.
Yeah. So, let's just. I want to touch a little bit more on the schools. I think that's an amazing opportunity. I guess, like, when you think of um people that are just going into vocational schools. I mean, in ideal, I see it. Some schools are really into virtual construction. Others are not. I guess, like, if somebody, let's say they go to a school that's not as interested, like, what advice would you give that individual to
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
skill up?
I guess first off, David, I mean, if you've seen these schools and you know where they're at, please let me know because I haven't seen a whole lot of them that are into virtual construction that deep. We've been around the country, we've asked, we looked. I think they've got a school in Atlanta. I'm not real sure what it's called. And then I know that the fitters locals and stuff out in Arizona teach their people to do a lot of virtual construction. But I mean, it's literally I'm kind of coming up empty handed a little bit as far as getting into construction and into the depths, but if I was to tell a young kid now, you know they hear the word construction and they shy away because it's usually looked at as laborious work or intense work. And I don't think that a lot of people know that this field exists and
Yeah.
that you can make a really good living doing it too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say I've probably met many people that are making more than, people that had a 4-year degree and sometimes even a master's degree.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, yeah.
That's
I,
another
don't
topic.
get me wrong. I think college is very important. Went through the trades, so I've been
Yeah.
brought up through an apprenticeship, and all my schooling was paid for. I did on the job training, and I came out with zero debt. So
Yeah.
that speaks for itself right there. And don't get me wrong, I think that, there's a big stigma that needs to get changed.
Yeah.
And I believe that the construction industry is I don't want to say looked down on, but it's just not held at the same level as everybody else. And I just want people to realize that, you can do well and you can do well for your family. And
Yeah.
I don't think people realize the type of money people are making in construction.
Yeah. And
People
it and
charge an
I
obscene thing.
yeah, I mean, it is. I think the technology is really changing it. I mean, you go to some of these and they have uh I mean, the level of technology or automation they have is really, really cool.
It's
Uh
amazing.
yeah. So, I know another topic, we've talked about is really around, cross-functional collaboration with different parts of the construction process. And so,
Yeah.
like, I know, we were talking about this with, there's kind of an order of operations of, like, maybe mechanical has or the HVAC has uh you know spe preferential treatment of, I mean, you don't have a lot of room, so it's got to go. So, but electrical, a lot of times it's like, oh, we can move it around, and
Yeah.
uh,
Again, it comes back to we're just behind in the industry.
yeah,
We're 10 to 15 years behind. You know, I I can't say that I've ever gotten a 3D ISO of anything anybody's ever wanted me to put in.
yeah,
You go to your duct guys, you go to your plumbers, you open up their prints, go get a paper set of prints right now, and they'll open it up and there's going to be a 3D ISO of what they want them to put in, whether it's BIMmed or not. Me, I get a beginning and an end, and it's called means and method. You figure it out on the job, And let's just take this for an example. I'm working on a big 4-story job right now, and I've got a riser rack that I'm putting in this building, and it's got 30 conduits on it. I'd say probably 15 of those conduits are 3 inch to 4 inch. And I have been given no box out and no space for any of those conduits. They run through the whole basement and then go all the way up from the basement to the fourth floor. No one planned that out for me. I don't have any steel structure to box out for a window. You look at the duct guy or the drains, the roof drains coming down for a plumber, they get box out windows, they get steel reinforcement, but no one thinks to procure any space for the electrical. And it's a big deficiency in the pre-design and architect and designing phase of the job. And I feel like, us as electricians, we're being let down a little bit.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it with electrical, or mechanical being years and years ahead, and mechanical, it's large materials you're dealing with, but still, that when you think of efficiency gains, it sounds like if they were to provide more resources, that it would actually help.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it
yeah,
absolutely would help. I mean, and that's one of the things is, we get into these projects and we're doing BIM, right? They get that 3D ISO, they drop it into their model, and then they just convert it over to the parts that they're actually going to use and what they're doing. So they're using the original design model to model stuff in. Well, me as electrical, I get that same 2 week window or 3 week window to get all my stuff in, but yet all I got's a beginning and an end, and I'm told how, figure out how to get it there. So it's like you're asking me to do stuff in the same amount of time, but giving me 3/4 less information.
yeah,
So, let's keep this a little bit fair here, you know what I mean? So now I've got 3 or 4 modelers trying to jam stuff in the same amount of time that they've got one modeler just dumping stuff in.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a little bit frustrating, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like an opportunity to just for better coordination across
Yeah.
the entire project of, if you think of it, it's there you having to just reactively figure out, okay, where does this go? And then you go to the job site, it's like, shoot, we don't have that. We didn't, and so there's risk for rework, delays, there's
You know, the
inefficiency.
sad part, David, is a lot of this has went on in the field for a long time, and it was just the foreman's or the person on site to figure this out. So, they've been getting these nice drawings for years and years and years, and BIM really hasn't been a big thing in Toledo, Ohio for a long time. It
Yeah,
literally started to take a boom in the last like 5 to 10 years.
yeah,
And so all this work was usually done in the field,
yep,
by a foreman, and they're being expected to manage the job, keep it on budget and manage the people. And so now that we're starting to get into it earlier in the design phase, we're able to catch some of these errors. But these were conflicts that came up in the field that it was just like, well, you guys go in last because you don't have it figured out. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's getting better and better, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, that's the exciting thing, that, and I see that, it's improving because what you're saying is that in the old world it was kind of like, all right, you're going last, you figure it out, we put everything in, like,
Yep.
figure it out. And now, I think you're at least looking at a design, and it sounds like there's the opportunity now to really better coordinate
Well,
together.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, we have to. We really have to because these projects are getting the timelines are just shrinking, and everybody's wanting stuff done on time and on budget, and
yeah.
so quick. And you're going to hear me say on time and on budget over and over and over again because that's really the restrictions that we're getting into. I mean, when you start looking at these multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar projects, that owner is paying money on that land and that time and that lease and that clock has started ticking, and the sooner that we can get them producing and making money or bringing patients in, that's the sooner that they can be, you know paying for their building off and on to the next one. So it's tough.
Yeah. Well, thanks for going into that, and it's exciting. I think that's, as I like, we've been talking about, it's getting better, and hopefully it continues And to your point, if we're gonna build it cost effectively, and if we're having to continue to meet timelines and budget, then opportunities like this need to be exploited, you know? So
Absolutely.
a good way. Awesome. Well, this has been great, Aaron. I've really enjoyed this conversation. What would you say are just some final thoughts, final words for our listeners?
One thing I gotta say is let's just keep poking at the youth. Let's keep training them up. Let's keep getting them involved. Let's show them that construction's great and you can make a good living, and that there's a lot of different avenues that you can go and you can take in the construction world, in the construction industry. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. Let's keep seizing it and let's keep taking it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, thanks, David. Appreciate it.